Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Eagles of Empire Miniatures. In today's video we are going to do an unboxing of our newly released Garde Mobile set. We are going to do a complete run through of the different miniatures, the different poses, so you know what you're going to get in terms of painting and the hobby aspect of it. We're also going to look at the gaming aspect, namely the stats and the special abilities that the Garde Mobile is going to bring into the Eagles of Empire skirmish rule system. I'm really excited to show you guys this one. I've painted up some of the miniatures. We're going to take a close look at that too. So let's dive into it. This is the Republican phase of the Franco-Prussian War. So we are in the latter part of the war. The Emperor Napoleon has been captured after the Battle of Sedan, and this is the Republican core force that we're going to have a look at today. These are the men that were mustered in all haste to try to push out the German occupants around Paris. This is the core of the Paris defense and the core of the Loire army. So let's take a look at these cool guys and see what kind of miniatures are in the bag. Alright guys, let's take a closer look at the Garde Mobile. This is the standard zip bag that you get your historical miniatures in when you buy a set of miniatures from Eagles of Empire, and each set will contain miniatures, a face card with a uniform plate and some historical information. I'll show you that in a minute, and also unit cards. Let's go ahead and open, put out the different contents here, and we have miniatures also. So the reason we are packing in zip bags is simply that today most trade is done online and we don't want to be transporting too much air. It is not good for your economy or our environment. So we're packing everything in these zip bags, and it's also really usable if you want to store miniatures when they are unpainted. So that aside, let's have a look at what we got here. We got the face card for the Garde Mobile with an inspirational picture. We have the uniform plate, a really nice illustration made by a French illustrator called Manu, who actually lives in Alsace-Lorraine. He's also a really big enthusiast of the Franco-Prussian War, and he's been working with us for quite a while now, doing all our uniform plates. So this is a standard Garde Mobile uniform with the sheepskin vest that they were wearing since this is the latter part of the war. We are into October, November, December, and even January. Some of the battles were fought in extreme cold in this period, minus 20 degrees Celsius, so really cold. And the troops were finding different ways to keep warm, which is also reflected in the miniatures. They have torn some shirts and created band-aids on the hands. They created they're wearing some scarves around the kepi and the ears and so on to stay warm. It's reflected also in many of the paintings from the period, so you can see that. So looking at the Garde Mobile face card on the back side, we have some historical data here on the Garde Mobile. It tells you a little bit about the background. There's again an inspirational picture how to paint the miniatures, and there are some stats here on the unit. Now I wanna highlight one of the stats, because normally these stats would be the same as is on the unit card itself, but since some of the units were equipped with chassepot, I mean they would get these of dead compatriots or steal them otherwise, and many were equipped with the tabatière, a more basic rifle system, a tab rifle system. We have both weapon system reflected here in the stats, so you can play with either or depending on what you want to do in your game. But we have one range here for the tabatière and one range here for the chassepot, so that's worth noting. So yeah, that's the face card, historical painting, uniform plate, data on the unit, and also some stats here for the game. So this will get you inspired and get you started painting. Let's put that aside for a moment and look at the unit card. So In a set of miniatures here, you get 16 miniatures, which is enough to build 2 squads of Garde Mobile infantry. So you have 2 unit cards, 1 for each squad. So looking at the unit card, we can see that the major difference here, the thing that pops into my immediately, is that it only costs 2 command points to recruit. That is really low compared to some of the other units in the game. This is reflecting that these units were recruited in all haste and with only basic training, in many cases with old arms and so on. So they are not perhaps the most sturdy infantry you can use in hand-to-hand combat, which is reflected in the special rule here that I'll go into later. So there is a somewhat lower cost to recruit this unit. Of course, that's going to give you some options to really swarm a lot of Garde Mobile into play, but when they're faced with more trained and disciplined standard infantry on the German side, you might encounter some problems, just like the historical aspect of the Franco-Prussian War as it was fought in the autumn of 1870. So looking closer at the stats, we have a movement rate of 6 inches, nothing new, 27 inches on the chassepot, also standard. They have a quite high firepower due to the efficiency of the chassepot, but they have a somewhat lower charge value and defensive value, standard 2d6, unit strength 3, all standard again, but they have the special rule called freshly raised. Now, if you're new to Eagles of Empire skirmish rules and you want to check what all these little symbols mean, there's a nice quick ref in the rule book way in the back. Find it right here. There is a quick ref on all the different special abilities, what they mean, because different units have different abilities, of course, and this will give you a nice and quick guide how to analyze the strength and the weaknesses of the unit. So this little dagger here means that the unit is freshly mobilized, and it is well, it just got mobilized and it's actually prone to desertion. And it means that when the unit is being charged or making a charge, you have to do a morale test. So you take 1d6, you need a 4+ to pass the test. If you don't pass the test, you immediately lose 1 unit strength from the table as a consequence of desertion. So the unit strength will be lost before you resolve the hand-to-hand ensuing hand-to-hand combat. So that means that the Garde Mobile, once they are faced with real hand-to-hand combat, they might get into some trouble, right? Because losing unit strength also means they're gonna hit and save somewhat poorer. So the unit will really lose its impetus pretty fast if it starts to get into too much hand-to-hand combat and has to take too many moral tests. So this is a rule reflecting the raw recruit standard of the Garde Mobile. Historically, these units were really really freshly and from the depot, so to speak. So that's all in the unit card and in the rules here. So put that aside also, and we'll look at the miniatures. So I'm gonna get these on the table and I'm gonna just line them up for you so you get a good overview. So if some of you have been buying our Franc-Tireur box, you might recognize some of the poses, and that's because the uniform, basic uniform, is the same but in different colors, right? So for the Garde Mobile, we have a mix of some of the miniatures you would find in the Franc-Tireur set and some of the new ones made especially for the winter campaign. So I'll highlight some of the ones that are new in this video, I'll show you this one particularly. I think is really cool. So this is a model of a Garde Mobile taking cover behind his backpack. He can also be wearing the backpack or lie behind some bricks or whatever you have, a shrubbery or whatever. And he is bidding the Germans welcome to the Loire Valley with some sniping here. Really cool miniature. I'm actually painting him at the moment. I haven't completed the basing yet, but I'm pretty happy with the overall result. I'll put this up as a finished miniature in the end of this video, so you can take a closer look at him then. But I think it's interesting to see some of the new poses and some of the more, let's say, odd and different poses that we're going to be adding to this set. One of them is the kneeling and firing pose of this miniature. Also, again, like this guy over here, he's wearing the sheepskin vest, which is going to add a lot of the winter characteristics of the Garde Mobile to the unit. There's another one here. He is also, so I can point with the brush here, he's also wearing a shirt or a scarf around his kepi to protect his ears from the cold. Many of the guys would do this. He's also got some fabric here around the fingers and the hands just to keep them warm. They would just go into people's houses, get some of the laundry, get whatever they could get their hands on, and protect the skin from the extreme cold. This was really it was a harsh winter. The Battle of Le Mans was fought in -20 degrees, just to give you an example. So these guys were cold. Yeah, again, I'm kind of painting these up at the moment. They're not really all the way done, but you get a good picture here. We got the scarf around the ear, we got the sheepskin vest and everything. They're gonna come out nicely, I think. Again, with the characteristic heavy backpacks of the French. This guy also has wrapped a scarf or a shirt around his ears to protect them from the cold. And here the kneeling guy. I'll put a picture up here so you can just see some of the inspiration that we have used in the sculpting process. We've really taken our time to find the characteristics of how the troops looked and fought during the autumn and winter. So on we go with some of the poses that you might know from the Franc-Tireur box. But again, it's the same uniform and same kind of equipment. But these are all these individual skirming poses, some firing, some grabbing some ammo here, dashing forward, coordinating the charge. And here's one of the new guys with the extra winter equipment, again the sheepskin vest and a scarf wrapped around his ears. And of course we have a new officer added to this box as well. Let me also post a picture here of some of the images that we use to get inspired to really capture the dash and the essence of the Garde Mobile officer. I think he's got a hooded greatcoat, and he's kind of leading from the front here, shouting, you know, "Get up, you scumbags! Follow me!" So many of the French. Yeah, I have a somewhat painted version of him here. I'll finish him up and put him in the end of the video as well, so you can see. I think the greatcoat is going to come out really nicely. Going to really pop together with that red kepi. I'm going to base these on snow bases. Let me just show you a good example of a snow base. This is actually it's a Franc-Tireur unit. So this is some of these miniatures painted as Franc-Tireur, the irregulars, but it's a snow base. I'm just using some of the AK terrain snow. It's an acrylic compound, and it actually spreads out and dries up and looks really nicely. It's easy to work with, and I think it gives a nice result. So that will be the finish of the bases once the miniatures get ready to be photographed. Of course, you got the bugler as well, and I think an overall good variety of standing, sitting, lying, kneeling poses, so you can really get a lot of animation into your unit. Yeah, so what I wanted to say is that regarding the officers, during the Loire campaign, they were really relying on the officers to get the men going. They had a huge problem with morale, the French. They lost a lot of the battles in the Loire, and again, this was coming off the back of the imperial part of the war, where they also lost, consecutive battles, and the emperor got caught by the Germans. So the huge pressure on the officers to really motivate and really lead the men. And we wanted to reflect that in the miniature, and I think our sculptor Bob did a absolutely stunning job with this guy. There's so much detail in the great coat. There's so much detail in his animated pose here. Shouting at the guys. Turning his back to the enemy for one moment to actually get the guys going up for that bayonet charge. And yeah, let me just show you this is one of the bigger bases in a unit, the one with the 3 miniatures on it. There'll be 2 others with 2 each. There'll be a standard squad. And here again, I've chosen to add a little bit of snow and frost on the dry grass to give it that autumn and winter feel. So one of the things that the Garde Mobile, I think the essence of the Garde Mobile is you really need to get the colors right of the pants and the dark blue tunics, right? So you get that particular feeling. As I was actually looking quite a while to find a right combination of those blue colors. And I have found that a very talented fellow producers over at War Games Foundry, they have a wonderful triad called Confederate Grey. The number is, I think, is 117. They have an A, B, and C 117 in the color table that they have. Those paints are fantastic. They really hit the spot of this bluish gray that the Garde Mobile have. You can always darken it down like I did on this guy with some washes. I mean, depending on your taste and what what inspires you, what you're working on in terms of look and feel. So yeah, that is the Garde Mobile, the core infantry of the Army of the Loire. These guys were, many of them were raw recruits. They've had only, few days, if a week perhaps, of training, and they were part of, they were supposed to be the same for France as the Landwehr was for the Germans. The only difference was that the Landwehr actually had a lot of training. These guys were pretty drilled compared to the Garde Mobile. So yeah, I'm interested to see what this is going to give you on the gaming table, because it certainly gave us some interesting results. They do fire really well. I mean, they fire in the same manner as the standard infantry, especially if you give them the chassepot. If you give them the tabatiere, which is perhaps a little more historically correct, they will have the same basic range as the Germans, which is still good. They will slug out 3d6 in firing, and they will have the same range as the Germans, even if they're at the poorest weapon. So not a bad unit in terms of firing, but the charge value, yeah, and defense value, well, that's gonna be a challenge for them if they go into hand-to-hand, because they're gonna roll that d6 in the moral test and see if they can pass, or if they're gonna lose some of the men to basic desertion, right? So interesting aspect gaming wise. I'll round off with saying that we are also going to launch, or we have launched actually, 2 new Doctrine cards. So I'm just going to do a little shout out for these guys and end up the video with that. We've done one for the Bavarian faction and one for the Republican French faction. So if you're gonna play a Republican army with Garde Mobile and maybe Regiment de Marche and so on, all of them are coming in range, why not grab the Republican Doctrine card as well? It's got some pretty cool dynamics for the game. I'll run through them now just shortly to get you inspired here. At 1 command point we have Gambetta's Wrath. Gambetta sends fresh recruits. Choose 1 squad of Garde Mobile in command, means that it has to have an officer. Regain 1 unit strength for this squad. So it actually means that with 1 command point you can actually go into squads that are already on the table, and you can bolster their lines a little bit with this one. At 2 command points we have Fixed Bayonets. Choose a Mobile or Regiment de Marche unit in command. Again, it has to have an officer to use this one. This unit will charge with 1 extra attack die per squad in this round. Also pretty strong if you're going into hand-to-hand. You can add extra attack dice to your attack roll. And lastly, at 2 command points and 1 ammo cost, give them hell. Your gun crews work feverishly. Each mitrailleuse gun or battery may fire twice during the shooting phase of this round. This is really worth noting, right? If you field 2 mitrailleuse guns, they become a battery, and instead of 1 die, they fire 3 dice. And with this activation, you can have them fire 2 times in 1 round. So that is 6 dice potentially. All of them will cause non-savable casualties on rolls of 5 and 6. So pretty strong Doctrine card if you're gonna play the Republican French army. I'm gonna talk a little more about the Bavarian Doctrine card, Stolz zu dienen, but we're gonna do that in the Bavarian infantry video. So keep an eye out for that one. It's gonna come shortly once I find the time to film it. But I'm gonna wrap up this video and say thank you for watching, and I hope you guys are having a great time out there with your hobby and getting some good games in there with your mates and enjoying painting some miniatures. Stay safe and have a good one. Bye bye.